So, Amber, tell me about your relationship with Noam when you first knew of her and what it was like getting to meet.
Yeah, actually, Noam and I are actually old friends. I've known her for a really long time. I lived in the West Bank in Ramallah for quite a few years while I was making my first film called Speed Sisters. And at the time, Noam was working at the UN and we had a lot of mutual friends and sort of met that way. And then at some point, left Palestine. She left the UN, and I started to see that she was you know uh putting jokes online, like on Instagram, and that she was doing all of these things around comedy. She's on TV, all of these things, and I was just like, what is she doing? Like, I thought she was working for the UN. Anyways, when she ended up getting a fellowship to develop her one woman comedy show at Harvard, we sort of reconnected, and that's how it sort of all started. This was like in November of 2019, and so soon after, I picked up a camera and went and met her in Boston, and we started filming. And that's we had no idea where the film was going to take us.
The title obviously, references what, her act, etc. But I think it definitely is attention grabbing in a good way. Do you feel like there are people who come to this film expecting something different than what they're going to get?
Yeah, I think so. I think people aren't really sure what they're going to get necessarily from the title. And yeah, I think the title is provocative enough to draw a lot of different people, I think, into the theater, without necessarily it might be a surprise to some people. I'm not sure.
I think what I like most about it, about the film in general, and the way that you explore a lot of Noam, is that you don't necessarily have to agree with Noam's perspective on things, but the way in which she's portraying it, you can tell that there is a real passion to what she feels. That none of this is, even though she's literally performing, none of this is performative. It all really speaks to what she's, how she feels and the worldview that she has. But I think it has an ability to reach people in a different way than standard conversation or arguing might, because of the nature of what she does.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, you know, it's the film is Norm's perspective, and it's also her upbringing and her reality. And I think that is, I think that's really interesting. I think that it's a really interesting way to talk about like what is happening in the Middle East through Noam's own personal lens. And then I think that the comedy, it disarms people. Like, I think that it's because Noam is and her comedy is so personal and it is so political that it sort of like it breaks down walls, and opens people up. And so like you're laughing one minute and then you're sort of crying the next, or you're receiving this information that you may not have known, or that is really heavy. And it's just I don't know, I do think. And also, she's just so charming that she really, people are really captivated by her. And whether or not they believe in absolutely everything that she says or agree with everything that she's, I shouldn't say they believe it's her story. But if they don't agree with what she says, I still think there's a respect for like that this is her story, and her perspective. And so I think the film, really has the ability to sort of reach a broad audience.
I think especially over the last couple of years, we have a lot of people who don't necessarily have any particular stake in what's going on, who have very loud things to say. And you can tell very much that Noam, and especially you, having lived in the West Bank, you have much more of a just sense of connection to what's happening. That, of course, that's an opinion that you should share. Do you feel like you have encountered people throughout the tour of this film who try to sort of shout down what she and you are saying without seeming to have anything to back it up in terms of their own lived experiences?
I don't, not necessarily. I mean, like, the film, is mostly just played at film festivals. And the type of questions that we have, there might be one or two, like, challenging question, but it, we haven't really had that much, that much confrontation, to be honest. And I don't know if it is, people may not agree and just leave the theater. I mean, it's those who are speaking to us, and that's, that, like, I'm sure that there are people that the film challenges them in ways that make them feel uncomfortable, and they leave the theater because of it, or not walk out. We haven't had very many people walk out of the film, but they, like, after the film, so I can't really speak to that. All I know is, like, from the screenings that we've had, audiences have been, very curious and very respectful, and seem to walk away. The film really affects them, I think, from an emotional perspective. So that's, but we're just about to launch a theatrical release, and the film, may hit a wider audience, and so we'll see what happens.
I'm curious if that was your expectation that it would be met this way, and also if there were any challenges to distribution, even just based on the title, not only the topic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. When we launched the film, I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't. Obviously, it's such a tense time, and to launch a film like this during this particular time, was definitely quite scary. So it's been, very, it's been a nice surprise about how the film has been received. And then in terms of distribution, like so many films on this topic, we haven't received distribution just in the US. We have in Europe. And we are currently self-distributing. And so right now, actually tonight, we're opening at the IFC in New York, and we'll play in limited theaters in LA and San Francisco, Chicago, Houston, and Detroit over the next couple of weeks.
What can you tell me about that self-distribution process? What are the keys? How does that work? Do you feel good
I,
about it?
I I don't know. You'll have to ask me in a few months how it goes. It's quite, it's pretty new to me, and it's been a lot of work. And I think that as a filmmaker, you think that it takes 5 years to make a film. You're constantly trying to raise money and trying to, you know um yeah, the whole time you're raising money, and it's such a hard process just to make the film, and then at the other end of it to have to, like, sort of start all over again and now go through this distribution element of it. It's a lot, but I am, hopeful that the film will meet audiences, and that people will find it. So yeah, maybe ask me in a couple months, and I'll have more insight into that.
Well, on the opposite end of the question I asked earlier, have there been surprisingly positive interactions where someone has said something you didn't expect that, instead of antagonizing, really just made you
There's been
feel very
tons
good?
of there's been more of that. There's been tons of very, very positive feedback from the film. We've had, you know, a mother and daughter had seen the film together, and had, very different opinions about what was going on, and said that the film had helped them have, like, to have a conversation for the first time about it. Like, I think that for the film really resonates with people. I would think it really sits with people. It makes people think. I've been told that there's been, amazing conversations that have come out, using that film sort of as an entry point into those conversations. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure to screen the film, and to have the types of feedback that we've been having.
I had the chance to see the film at Sundance, and I was rereading my review, and I said, there's a shaky ceasefire in effect, and obviously now we're at a different point with another ceasefire that still remains shaky in effect.
Another shaky ceasefire. Yeah.
I have some idea of what Noam would be saying in this case, but how has this affected the release? What do you think that contributes to it, and how does that make it even more relevant?
I mean, the ceasefire. You mean how this ceasefire has affected the release specifically, or?
Sure, or just in general, just how it feels. I mean, obviously, when you were making it, things were different than they are, and they were also not different than they are.
Yeah, I don't think that they're different. I think that we're still in the same, like, I don't think that, just as in coexistence can't just, you can't just say it and it happens, that there actually needs to be work that is behind it. I don't think that you can just say peace and that also happens. So like that, we are still like, I think 114 Palestinians that were just killed yesterday. I don't think that this like quote unquote ceasefire is the end of anything. And I think the film is still as relevant as it was when we launched at Sundance earlier this year.
Do you have any hope for the future? Do you think that there is a possibility things can be better?
One of the things Noam says is that like we have to hope. We don't have the luxury of not having hope. We don't have the privilege of not having hope. And I think that all we can do is continue to fight, continue to use our voices in whatever way we can to pressure our politicians to continue to stand up for equality and justice, really like everywhere. And I think that yeah, and I think Noam is a perfect example of that, of how to use her privilege and her voice to continue to fight for people who are oppressed. So yeah, I guess we have to have hope.
Obviously, you're very entrenched in this film and the promotion and self-distribution, but what's next for you? Do you have an idea of what you'd like to do and focus on in the future?
I don't 100%. I don't 100% know. Most likely, I'm in the process of moving back to Canada, and may look at some stories that are sort of based in Canada. I'm Canadian, so looking at going back home. But yeah, no, open to other projects. Yeah, we're really in the thick of it right now. I don't have the space to to be thinking about other projects quite yet.
Well, even if you're not making them, I'm sure there are projects that you have seen from other people that have stuck with you a lot recently. Is there anything that you'd really recommend that's on your mind?
Films other people's films that I've seen. Well, I just saw Mistress Dispeller the other night, and that is a really fantastic, and that is also in theaters right now. And I've also seen Shireen Debus's new film, All That Is Left of You, and Anne Marie Jasser's film, Palestine 36. And those are all like, I mean, in terms of if you want additional films about Palestine, I really highly recommend those films as well.
And what's the best place for people to find out more about where to see Coexistence My Ass?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow us. I go to our website at coexistencemyass.com, or on social media, and social media everywhere at Coexistence My Ass.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I wish you plenty of luck
Thank
with this
you.
self-distribution and some positive hope for the future of the world.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.